the hour, we do have a very special guest that we're going to introduce. He is the executive director of Our Revolution, Joseph Geevarghese, and he has been a longtime labor activist for folks that don't know that. So he's had a whole labor rights activism life outside of Our Revolution. So let's go ahead and bring Joseph on.
Hey, Tina.
Welcome,
hey,
Joseph. So glad we could
Maria.
have you today. We have lots to talk about, lots going on. There's some wins, some losses, some frustrations. But right off the top, I want to talk to you about the railroad strike. Obviously Biden stepped in and he thwarted the strikers from going on strike, kind of forced that deal. One of the main selling points, or one of the bad points, I should say, is the sick days are not part of the deal. And Bernie Sanders is now asking for Biden to sign an executive order, more or less, to sign that into law, that they get there at minimum 6 days, and 7's not enough. They should have more. I do want to ask you, though, because you've dealt with Biden in the past. When Obama was president and you were head of a labor movement, you had him as your point person, as VP. And I think back then you learned you had to make him do things, right? Obama was supposed to be this progressive guy that was pro-labor, and he still wasn't, doing the things necessary to bring the labor rights forward. So making him do it, right? Activism from the outside. So now we're going to be going toe to toe with him to try to see if he'll sign this executive order. What do you think the outcome is going to be?
Look, I think the most significant takeaway from this strike is there's still a fundamental question about which side is the Democratic Party on. Is it on the side of workers and organized labor, or is it on the side of big corporations? And time again, we've seen Democratic administrations pick the wrong side. And this is just another example. And in some ways, I would argue that this could have been a Patco in reverse moment for Joe Biden. We had one of the key moments in labor history that really signaled, I think, the beginning of the demise of the American labor movement in this era was when Reagan said, I am not going to stand on the side of striking air traffic controllers. I'm going to use my authority as president to bust the union. And in some ways, the president, while he didn't bust the union, he did use his power to say, you know what, I'm not going to make you, the workers, more powerful at the bargaining table. And the truth is the workers had power, right? I mean, they could paralyze the entire economy if they wanted to. And that's something that I think is significant, is that workers were positioned. They had muscle, but the president said, no, I'm not with you.
Yeah.
And I think that has, in a larger context, in the larger political context, if we're going to rebuild progressive politics in this country, I think it's imperative for us to have a strong labor movement. And most importantly, it's important to have a government that stands on the side of workers, because that's what we elect people like Joe Biden to do. And in this case, it was really disappointing. Do we support Bernie, others pushing on the executive action, in terms of getting sick days? Of course. But more generally, I think there should be some soul searching on the part of unions, on the part of progressives, about what we've got to do to make Democratic politicians embrace labor much more than just rhetorically.
Right. No, that's exactly right. They could have leaned on the employers to force them to provide the sick days instead of leaning on the workers to say you can't strike because you're going to shut down the economy. Let's be clear. That was a choice that they made. They do have the power to lean on the other side, but you're right. They didn't. Reagan didn't do it. Biden didn't do it. And both of these were, broad transportation strikes that did threaten the well-being of the economy. But on the same token, I don't see that strike would go longer than a couple of days, because the money these large companies would lose would be substantial. And it wouldn't just be the railroad companies, right? So, and that's the point of having power,
Yes.
right? And that is why you broke the strike.
That's right. I mean, there there are low-wage workers, and in this case, it's not necessarily the railway workers. They've been organized. They have some collective bargaining power that's given them some decent wages and benefits. They still deserve sick days. They still deserve a say in their working conditions. But there's whole swaths of this modern logistics or supply chain economy that are workers that are living in poverty, scraping by, working in nodes of the supply chain, working in warehouses, workers who have incredible power, but they're not able to organize for whatever reason. They're counted as independent contractors. They're not covered by labor law. And it's still segments of the economy the president or the government could do something about. But I think, maybe they want to keep these critical workers unempowered. Maybe there's something to that, and we should think about that.
Yeah, I mean, they're afraid that they might actually wake up and feel their power and then not stop asking for things that they deserve. Labor has been beaten down for so many decades now that the defeatist attitude we've been feeling has been just, a long time sitting there. But now I think it's changing. I think that there is an increase in labor power. More companies are losing their gambits to unions forming. We see that with Amazon. We see it with Starbucks. We see it with others. So I think there is a shift and change in the way people are viewing that, which is good. It's a necessary component to affecting real change in the country. I want to also mention, Manchin's dirty deal. That was a win. That is a zombie bill, though, that keeps coming back. I think that Biden had promised him another turn at that bill, that would give him the pipeline when he agreed to the Inflation Reduction Act, right? So there was a trade-off that was made. So we stopped it last week, but I don't think that it's over. I think it might come back again. What is your take on Manchin's dirty deal?
Well, it is going to, from what I understand from talking to our allies on the Hill, the other side is trying to push a vote. They're trying to get the NDAA amended to include this. And look, let's be
even
real. Even now, they haven't given up, right? And we'll be on the Hill tomorrow mobilizing against it. And we're generating phone calls to senators. The truth is, this is a pivotal moment for the climate justice movement. And the pivotal moment is this: we cannot afford to keep building fossil fuel extracting infrastructure if we're going to meet any of the goals to save our planet and our climate. And it is in some ways hypocritical for the administration to go out and say we are the most pro-climate administration in history, and look, passing the measures they did in the Inflation Reduction Act are positive steps forward, but they can't cancel it out by cutting this side deal with Manchin and saying, what, we're going to keep the fossil fuels flowing. That won't work. And that's why we're going all out to stop it. And, we do have to call out the administration and Democrats who are on the wrong side. Just like they're on the wrong side of labor, they're on the wrong side of this fight.
So, Joseph, first of all, I thought I was having a decent hair day today, but you just put me to shame, man. I gotta after the show, you gotta send me some tips. I mean, it's perfect pompadour, sir. I'm a little envious, not gonna lie. But
well, thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about just the anatomy of our revolution, the organization. I mean, to my understanding and what interaction that I've had. The organization seems very heavily focused in the electoral realm. And now, a lot of people have had some frustrations just towards that process, myself being one of them, understandably so for all of us. And now, I seem to be hearing more about like an inside-outside strategy. So is the organization kind of expanding a bit and focusing more outside of electoral politics? And if so, like what exactly does that look like from an organizing standpoint?
So when you ask what our revolution is about, I would argue that we are fundamentally about the politics of power.
Okay.
And we're trying to figure out how do we build an enduring, progressive power base in the United States. That being said, I think part of it is being able to wield power in the electoral arena. But in the same way, I think it's important to wield power in particular issue fights. It is really important to play within the Democratic Party to call them out. We're in a two-party system. We've got to call Democrats out and try to take over the party, because the truth is they should represent us, not the corporate interest. But at the end of the day, again, what our revolution is about building power. And it starts at the grassroots, and it starts with organizing. And what moves people, at least the folks that we're engaging, is, what is it that we can do to improve the standard of living for ourselves, our families, our communities?
Yeah.
And then when you ask that question and you ask people, what do you care about? They say, well, I'm worried about keeping a roof over my head. I'm worried about making sure my kids can go to college. I'm worried about the future of the planet. I'm worried about making a living wage. If you follow the answers to those questions, some of the answers lie in the electoral realm. It does lie in making sure we elect people who are not afraid to stand up to corporate interests and say, yes, we should have unions for all. We should have living wages for all. But it also means calling the question on the rich and powerful by organizing around issues that we care about. Even though, for example, Medicare for all is incredibly popular, we don't have popular support within the Democratic power structure. And then it's incumbent on us to do what it takes to make that a reality, which is, trying to put more progressives in the Democratic Party, trying to take out Democrats who don't support it, and so, but that all being said, our goal, I think, is to be powerful so that we can advance the issues that matter to us, right? And I would argue, in some cases, there's no permanent allies, there's no permanent enemies, there's only permanent interests. And our interests are the economic interest, the material interest of the 99%. And we have to do whatever we can do, whatever it takes to win, right? And that's the way we think about our work. It's rooted in a vision of the world as it should be, but we're organizing in the world as it is, and that's power politics. And whichever side either has more money or more people will win. And the struggle for groups like our revolution is we're not organizing big donors, right? We're organizing small donors. We're organizing local folks and local communities to go out. And we're outmatched a lot of times, especially when it comes to big money.
Let me ask you this, Joseph. There's a whole group of voters that 5 years ago would have agreed with you, and they were Bernie Sanders supporters. But they're highly disappointed with the outcomes, with DNC shenanigans, with electing members to Congress like, maybe AOC, who they feel that has not fulfilled her obligation as being a progressive, maybe ignored some stuff that she said she was going to do. So they feel like they've lived through cycles of disappointment, and they no longer see the Democratic Party as a viable means of getting electoral power. What is your response to somebody that says that to you?
What I would say is, look, disappointments are real, and they are part of the territory when it comes to organizing and creating lasting social change. Look, it is rare that one election, one candidate transforms history. It has never happened. And even when you think about the civil rights movement, when you think about other transformational movements in our country, there were decades of organizing and base building and putting allies into power that resulted in change. And so what I would say is this, is like, we can't give up and can't lose hope. We have, as a movement, for the first time in decades, created a progressive voting bloc in Congress where, with the Congressional Progressive Caucus, where there is a block of votes that if we can get them to act in discipline, we have real power, right? We actually get to be.
And discipline's the key.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and it's on us.
I think a lot of people are a little frustrated because they're not acting in discipline. So how do we change that trend? Because it's been going on for a while now that they just have not acted as a block. And if they could, even though they're still grossly outnumbered, if they acted as a block, that's the first step in using the leverage you got. And it just hasn't been happening. And that's been frustrating.
Well, and that's where I think that's where we're learning as a movement. I mean, the CPC did not get to this, did not get to a point of having, I would say, enough votes. And that's what it comes down to in the House, right? I mean, decision makers, leaders in the House and Senate, leaders in the White House, they'll pay attention to you if you say, I represent a chunk of votes, and you know what? If you go against us, we're going to fuck you. And
boom. Yeah. Yes, that's exactly right. Why don't they realize that?
Well,
they have that power.
Yeah. So the challenge is, for us as progressives to make sure that the people that we put in power hold the line. That's on us, I think. And then, the other part is if they don't, we got to take them out and replace them with people who do, right? But that, in order to do that, it does require staying within our current electoral frame. I mean, if we could blow up the system and create a parliamentary system, a different system, I'd be with you. Should we have a worker labor party? Yeah, we should. But the current framework that we're operating in is one that I think gives us leverage if we organize. And that's the thing. Even in another universe, say in a universe that was multi-party, if we didn't organize, we wouldn't have leverage, right? We'd have to organize. The rules of the game might be a little bit different. We may not need as many votes to be a coalition partner, but at the end of the day, it comes down to organizing. And I don't think the Democratic Party or the progressive movement has organized enough, right? And we in the Democratic Party as progressives have not done enough to move the needle because, we're still complaining and losing. And so it makes me think, man, we got to get up and push these folks even further. I was in a legislative meeting the other day. It was a public meeting with elected leaders in one of our states, with some of our members talking about the legislative agenda coming up. And these were progressive electeds, people that we helped endorse and put in power. And we were talking about the issues. And one of the issues that came up was, we need to fight for the tip minimum wage, right? We can't allow, one set of workers to make less. And some of the progressive electeds said, you know what, we're with you, but no se puede.
What? That's shocking to me. Why can't they? I don't understand.
Well, and so that's the thing, because
you're like, wrong answer.
Right. No, and I think, it is the wrong answer. Is it challenging? Yes. But we won't take no for an answer. And that's where we've got to do the organizing to even make our allies feel like they can go out and legitimately win on an issue. Is it easy? No. But what they're saying is, well, we need, masses of people to come to the state house and say this is important. Well, okay, we'll do that. But you know what? We need you not to say it's not possible.
Right.
Because your responsibility is to represent us and to stand up. Right. So we'll do our part, but you've got to be able to go against the power structure yourself. So it's that kind of relationship that we're engaged in.
Right.
And it's a negotiation. And even with our allies, right, forcing them to be on the right side of stuff. But that being said, organizing's hard. It's long term, and that being said, I think the trajectory is we have, the fact that we have a vibrant progressive movement in this country after so many years of right-wing rule. And of course, we still have a lot to contend with, but, it is amazing to me that we have people like Bernie Sanders, and we have masses of people who voted and are interested in left politics in this country, which makes me hopeful that as we mature, we'll get more strategic, we'll get more numbers, right, and we'll able to win. But that's what it comes down to, is organizing and strategy.
Well, let me ask you.
Go ahead. Sorry, Ron.
Let me ask you as a strategy question, because, we could have a very long conversation about, third party or dem entering, blah, blah, blah. We could have that conversation for a very long time. But the one thing that I have found both strategies have in common is some rules need to change. I mean, I totally understand we're operating in a certain system, and I get that too. However, there are some rules that we could really fight to change, like getting money out of politics, ranked choice voting, things like that I think kind of bleed into electoralism still and also get overlooked, because I think those rule changes are necessary to really have a chance to have a progressive movement, be it successful within or outside the Democratic Party.
No, I think that's right. And I think that comes down to organizing, right? I mean, it is like, can we build a movement that's powerful enough to fight on those types of issues, rewrite the rules so that big money doesn't dominate our political economy? But the problem is, but it's on us. We're not organized enough yet to be a credible challenge to the way the rules are written, or even to some Democrats who, basically, yes, the progressive movement, right? They want our votes at election time, and then they screw us over when it matters. That's not acceptable. But I put the blame, it doesn't make me say fuck politics. I'm going to walk away from the public arena. It makes me think I got to be better as an organizer. I got to go talk to more people. I got to get smarter about the way I play. That's what Martin Luther King, right? I mean, that's what, people like A. Philip Randolph did, right? They, over decades, organized, right? And they won some fights, they lost some fights, but it was a constant effort of, mobilizing people day in, day out around a strategy. And honestly, whatever system we live in, it's got to be rooted in mobilization and activism, and activism that's smart. It's not just pointless protest, but it's protest that actually has some theory of winning or advancing, the cause forward.
I agree with you there. Protest for the sake of protest isn't necessarily effective. Let me ask you this. I think part of that strategy and the organizational structure changes, implementations that need to happen, really have to come from the DNC itself. I know Larry Cohen has been a large fighter for reform in the DNC. Jim Zogby has been. I've sat through so many meetings watching those guys, do their best to get around the establishment Democrats. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of those delegates are lobbyists. It comes to mind when I watched them kill the climate change bill, and the first person that came out on the floor to speak about it was an oil lobbyist, Maria Cardona. So there's so many things going on inside the DNC that are also stopping change. And what do we do about that? Because that's its own party policy machinations. It's not necessarily something that you can change without really, really infiltrating it, which is hard to do because these are not all elected positions. They're appointed.
Well, no, that's a good point. It is. I mean, people don't realize in the world that we live in, the way our democracy works, it is a two-party system. And there's this party system that they don't really teach you about in grade school, right?
Right.
Like, this is how, elections happen. They don't tell you, well, there's a party.
It's a powerful party.
It plays a gatekeeper function.
Yeah.
And we don't realize that growing up and going through civic school and, all that stuff. But that's one thing that at our revolution that's fundamental to our theory of change is, like, we do need to infiltrate, take over, transform the party. And it's just like at Congress where, it comes down to who's got the votes to win. And, what we've been doing is working with local grassroots activists around the country to help them win seats at precinct levels, at city council and county levels, and at state levels. And again, our theory of change is we need to build progressive voting blocks, whether on Capitol Hill, disciplined progressive voting blocks, right? Whether on Capitol Hill or within Democratic Party bodies or formations around the country. But that's the key part, because if we can form those blocks, we have a real chance to change the rules, move legislation. I think there's a viable path. Just to give you one other example that I think is incredibly hopeful, that you're not going to read a lot about in the mainstream media, but is St. Louis, right? We just elected an amazing Bernie delegate to become an alderperson. Then the last round, now she is just got elected president of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen.
That's great.
Is going to partner, right? So there is a progressive governing majority, right? So it's not just the president. The last cycle, we elected the mayor, right? So we've got the mayor, the president of the city council, and a block of, aldermen who are aligned to push a set of progressive policies. And what we've got to do as activists is make sure we organize to give them the support, because the other side's mobilizing, right? I mean, the police unions, the real estate lobby, they're doing everything they can to make sure our progressive voting bloc in St. Louis doesn't pass a progressive agenda. We've got to organize to push back. That's on us. But, the fact that we got that block in place is important. And that's what I would argue we need to do, whether it's in the, Maryland Democratic Party or the Massachusetts Democratic Party or the DNC. We've got to make sure we're electing enough progressives and then organizing them to have a decisive vote. And it's still a work in progress. But that being said, you mentioned Larry. Larry is, and others like Jane Clubb, who's on our board.
Yeah, Jane's great too.
Yeah, they're leading an effort to form a progressive voting bloc. But unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight. And yes, are there rich lobbyists and consultants that do business at the DNC that are trying to screw us? Yes. And it's really totally
if people haven't attended any DNC meetings, they do have open meetings that are open to the public. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. Most of them are, quite frankly. I encourage people to do this because I think if more people saw firsthand how this rolls out, they would maybe understand a little bit better what we're dealing with. But, hats off to Larry Cohen. He's always in there fighting the fight, I have to say. And he's very calm about it, too. When he speaks, he's very calm. I'm like back there going, are you kidding me? Very calm.
That's right. But it's a long term. Larry's been a member of the DNC for many, several decades, I think. And it's only now that they, it's probably the most powerful voting bloc of progressives they've ever had.
Right.
And, are they winning some fights? Yes. Are they losing some fights? Yes. And it just speaks to, the fact that we've got to get much more disciplined. I would argue the party moving the first voting state to South Carolina, that's like a big fuck you to progressives, is it not?
Yeah, yes. It is intentional. It is by design, and it absolutely is a big fuck you to progressives. It's just so these are the kinds of things I'm talking about, and they add up, right? They might seem like it's like death by a million cuts, right? All of these things eventually add up to a bigger thing. The DNC knows how to stop progressive politics. They're a well-oiled machine. They have members that are very much ingrained in establishment politics in DC, whether they're lobbyists, attorneys for corporations, whatnot. And they know what they're doing. They've played this game a long time. So they are very skilled at it. But I do think that it is changing a little bit. I would also give a shout out to Jim Zogby. I know that he's been a tough fighter in that arena as well. But I do think people should see it. I mean, it would help them to understand what it is we're up against, because it's just not a simple, easy fight.
That's right. Yeah, no, people should show up at the meetings and then get involved, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in their local Democratic Party structures, because it really is the foundational step for transforming American democracy. And look, if we had enough, activists taking over the Democratic Party, that we would have.
It would make a huge change.
Yeah, we'd have a much easier chance getting Medicare for all. We'd have a much easier chance getting the Green New Deal. But it's a very micro level of organizing. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand. It's our job to educate them and then give them pathways to get involved and support them, right? To show.
Yeah, I mean, if there was more progressive power there, they wouldn't have been able to move the first one to South Carolina, right? So that is decision. My point is that is a decision they made. They knew it would benefit their establishment candidates, and it's what they do time and time again. And the reason they can do that is because there are not enough progressives in these power positions. So, I mean, run for your local, if you're interested in being an activist, run for your local delegate system inside the party if you have an interest in doing that.
Or just try to take over, your local city government. I mean, you mentioned St.
that
Louis.
too.
I mean, that's the thing. One thing that I've learned, and I think a lot of the country is learning, is local is where we can win. And the real estate developers, they figured that out a long freaking time ago. Yeah. We got a lot of catching up to do. So, I mean, does our revolution, is there some organization on that level where you have local chapters and people are just kind of strategizing on how to take over their cities? And will that continue to grow?
Yeah, we have one in LA, in fact.
What's that? I'm sorry.
We have one in LA, in fact.
Yeah, no, it is the local, hyper local organizing that at the end of the day is what the organization is rooted in. I think people think, what is our revolution? Oh, that's the group that Bernie started. It grew out of his presidential campaigns. Yes, but it's actually much more. It's really about building long-term progressive power. I would argue that just like the religious right has churches, right? They have a network of faith-based organizations that they use for organizational purposes. The Democratic Party used to have unions at a local level. That's gotten wiped out with the help of the Democratic Party. But in the same way, our revolution is, right, like labor, we want to be rooted in local communities, local cells of people who have shared values about the way we see the world. And then we have some real ways to act on it. Because, it's, you want, how do you make reality happen? Well, you've got to go out and act in the world, which is really probably your neighborhood, your city council, your county commissioner. And so that's where our organizing starts, and then it scales up. But our work has been really focused on ground up change. One, because you got to organize at the grassroots. Second is, a lot of times local level bodies, legislative bodies, are laboratories of experiment. It's places where you can pass innovative legislation that then are models that you can take to a state level or ultimately to a federal level. So all of that goes to saying is, I think it all starts at ground zero, which is at the local level, where at the end of the day, it's the level of government that impacts our lives the most. Right. And then you can build up on that. But, our work is not abstract. It is rooted in everyday fights about, is that developer going to get money from the city? No, we won't. But only if we stand up and organize against it.
Right. So I know you got to go. I'd love to have you back on again to talk about more stuff. Thanks for joining us today for this conversation. We appreciate Joseph. And where can people follow you on Twitter, et cetera, if they want to stay in touch with your work?
So it's Our Revolution. And you can go to our website, ourrevolution.com. Our handle is The Political Revolution. You can find us on Facebook, Our Revolution. And I look forward to being back on the show and being in conversation with you and your wonderful audience about how we continue to move the movement forward.
Right on. Thanks, Joseph.